If all went well, we started the webinar. So welcome all today to the next Coperitas webinar. Last time we talked about data handling and transfer pricing software. If you've missed our previous webinar, feel free to rewatch the webinar on our website. It's uploaded over there. And today we're going to talk about entity management and transfer pricing. And today I'm joined by my colleague Richard Slimmen. Hi Richard.
Hi Mike.
Doing all well?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Nice, good to hear. So let's start. Before we start with the agenda, feel free to ask any questions in the chat box on your right hand side, and we try to answer all your questions. During this webinar, we also have a poll to see what your opinion is, and in the end, we have some nice goodies for you in terms of links to our next webinar, etc. Focus on the agenda today. We will give a short introduction on our view on legal entity management for transfer pricing professionals, and in broader view, the tax team. Then we will focus on different scenarios and challenges we've encountered during all our conversations with tax teams of multinational enterprises. And we will close the webinar off to show you our solution, capabilities of the Coperitas software in terms of legal entity management and our proposition. Richard, do you have anything to add on the agenda?
No, I think that's nicely wrapped up. I think everybody understands that we are focusing now on legal entity, and all the other parts of the Coperitas software are addressed in other webinars. So if you missed out on something, please take a look at the website.
Yeah, thank you. So if we go to the first part. So legal entity management, it's not of a daily practice for most tax people, but we wanted to show you what we think legal entity management is and what the difference with transfer pricing professionals are. And we've tried to visualize it in a sort of a Swiss knife. So on the left-hand side, we see a very large Swiss knife with lots of capabilities, lots of functionalities. And in the end, it's the question, do you need it all? And do you always know how those things work? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So you can think of within legal entity management, all relationships, entity data, legal charts, maybe shareholders information, maybe the new compliance requirements require you to have information at hand about the UBO. It can go very far. And I think from a transfer pricing perspective, I think we need to narrow that view. And maybe Richard, you can elaborate on how you think the transfer pricing needs are arranged in terms of legal entity management.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I think in general, as you say, there are quite a number of legal entity management tools out there in the market, and they are designed to be used by legal departments with a lot of features, a lot of details attached to them. But if you look at the needs of a tax department and more specifically a transfer pricing professional within a tax department, the actual needs are rather limited compared to the huge functionality of the left proposition. So what would be needed for a tax and transfer pricing work from legal entity management? I think obviously it's the legal tree. You need to have a good understanding of what the tree looks like, how parent subsidiaries are arranged and aligned with each other, You need to know what the changes will be and have been in the past. And you want to understand if there, for instance, are reporting lines not following the shareholder route, so to say. So you have a certain need to have information in respect of the legal entities, but it's rather limited. You need to know the management, you need to know the structure, you need to know the countries they're in, and you need to know some details perhaps on shareholder stakes. But it's relatively lean and mean, and we do believe in working with a tool should be as simple as possible. So you don't need to be distracted by a lot of details that you are not going to use, but you need to get by in order to get to the data you actually need. So from our perspective, Coperitas is being designed to be used by tax professionals, transfer pricing professionals, that work together with legal colleagues, but they have their own specific needs. So we think from a tax perspective, you need a restricted amount of data in respect of your legal entities. And we believe that you should at least try to think about what it is that you need in terms of data, and then we believe that within the Coperitas tool you can tailor the data that you need to be there for you to work with, without being distracted by a lot of other details. So it's lean and mean.
I think, Richard, also what attracts me about the Swiss knife, I've seen once how a Swiss knife is being made, and it's very easy to add and remove functionalities in a Swiss knife. So if you determine I need 5 functionalities or 10, and if you translate functionalities into terms of data, how much data do you need? You determine it before you're going to use such tooling, and that's why I love this comparison with Coperitas transfer pricing tool. You determine the amount of data you need. It can be very limited or it could be very extensive.
Exactly, and I think it will even differ per company, per professional that is having to work with the data. So therefore, flexibility is, I think, an important part of the tool, and you should, let's say, limit your information to that you actually have to work with. Yeah. And I think that allows the tool allows you to choose what to work for, and if you actually are one of the exceptions that need a massive amount of detail in terms of legal entity information. There in theory might be a situation that Coperitas would not be able to fit that specific need, but that would be a challenge we would be willing to engage in.
Yeah, I think that's true. And maybe if we look a bit further, why did we start with a legal entity platform? So maybe if we go into the next slide. Richard, will you take us through an introduction on this picture?
Yes, obviously it's a nice picture, and everybody can have his own thoughts about it. The reason for us to put it and visualize it this way is that when we talk to multinationals, obviously multinationals are organized within different departments. We have finance, we have legal, and we have tax. As 3 major departments that exist and coexist within large multinationals. But if we look at the way those departments have to work and the tools they have to work with, a lot of times we see quite some differences between those departments, and we try to visualize it in terms of finance departments have often quite sophisticated tools to work with, BI tools, a lot of financial tools with a lot of details and functionality included. that fits their purpose, obviously. And legal departments also have tools available to monitor, to maintain their agreements, to make use of specific sophisticated software to make work easier. And then we look at the tax department in general, and I know that I'm generalizing here, but in general, our understanding and our feeling is that the tax department still is at the Microsoft Office era, where the tools that are being used exist mainly of PowerPoint and Excel. Excel is a very useful and handy application, but still it is a manual-driven, hard-coded format of software that can be used, but has quite some, let's say, risks attached to it in terms of vulnerability, continuity, and stuff like that. The major message here is that we think that the tax department has a way to go to catch up with the other departments in terms of automation, in terms of using software tools that are there to soften the workload or help make it more efficient and effective.
Yeah, and I also think, Richard, that, and that's my humble opinion, is if you look at all the software packages, talking about Power BI, ClickView for finance, or even for legal effects, or looking into Microsoft Office, the differences are that the first set of tooling for finance and legal are actually doing something for you. And that's the presentation of a autonomous driving car. You do not have to drive it yourself. It takes you from A to B, if it all went correctly, of course. But it's doing something for you. You put in data, and it's showing you a dashboard, or it's giving you, let's say, deadlines of expiring contracts. And if you look at Microsoft Office, it's not doing anything for you unless you put in manual work. And that's the whole difference. And we truly believe with the increasing compliance burden at multinationals, it would be great, and that's also the feedback we hear, is if there's such a tooling like Coperitas and other transfer pricing tools that actually do something for the company without manually performing within the tool. And that's also what we're going to show you in the later stage of this webinar. Maybe a good thing to do is we want to ask about your opinions. So if it goes well, you see a poll on your screen, so you can give your opinion. Let me check publish. You can now vote if, and that's more multinational related, or you can make an educated guess. Do you, as a tax team, transfer pricing professional, or maybe a consultant, knowing about your clients, do you create your legal chart manually? So let's say in Excel, Visio, or in PowerPoint. Now we see votes coming in. It's 2/3 against 1/3. Actually 70%, and it's increasing. 75% is now answering yes, I'm creating and maintaining my legal tree manually. And 20% is answering no, I'm not creating it manually. And for both groups, we have set up some, let's say scenarios, Richard. We came across during our talks with multinationals. So I'm going to anti-poll right here. The end result is 80% and 20%. And if we go to the next slide, maybe you can talk us through the scenarios, Richard.
Yeah, I think what we see a lot of times is that you can think of different scenarios. If we think about the different teams within a multinational, so we have a tax team that needs to do its daily work and is in need of relevant information. And at this moment in time, we're focusing on legal entity information. And the scenarios that we have, let's say, put next to each other are the first scenario, there is no automated system for legal entity management. So there's nothing to draw from and you need to do all the work manually. Then we have the second scenario where there is a system, but it's a system that is not owned by the tax department, it's owned by likely the legal department because it's a legal entity management system and all the details that are relevant for the legal department to manage are managed through that system. But it's not your system, it's their system and you do not have access to it. And you will have to ask every time and again to get some relevant specific data that can be provided to you.
And Richard, what I usually hear is, or ask people is, how do you manage those increasing deadlines? If a tax authority requests your documentation, to give an example, in Poland you have 7 days.
Yes. And sometimes I've heard people complain that of those 7 days, and it's a short time. But for instance, out of those 7 days, 5 days have been consumed by chasing colleagues or departments to provide them information that they are required to put in the hands of the authorities. And then there's only very little time left to review and make sure that you're giving the right answer. So saving time in having access to the relevant data straight away is very much desired by a lot of those professionals. And it avoids a lot of frustration. So then we come to scenario 3 where there is this system, and as a tax department you also have access to it, which is a good thing because then you can actually work with the information and the data in there. But a lot of times we see, as we discussed before, Mike, that those systems very much focused on full scope legal entity management are quite comprehensive, have a lot of details, are quite difficult to navigate because there's a lot of different types of information in that system. And if you only use it every now and again as a tax department, it may take quite an effort to find that data that you actually need to have, which is another reason sometimes that even people with access to those systems are not making use of that access because it takes too much effort in identifying where they are and how to get there, and so they still end up in asking their colleagues to provide the information because that at the end of the day still is for them more efficient than looking for it themselves. So we have a certain set of situations where the tax department is either not able to access a tool or able, but not very, let's say, facilitating by the tool and still coming back to depending on others to provide the information.
Yeah, and I've seen some of those tools, and to be completely honest, I'm quite IT savvy, but without any guidance, it's very hard to navigate through those tools and looking for the TP related aspects. And on the other hand, you might not be logging in daily in those tools. So if you get a training on day 1 and you only need it twice a year, let's say, then 6 months later you already forgot how those tools work, and those tools are getting updated as well. So I think you easily lose track in those. But that's the personal experience.
No, I can relate to that. I think I'm even less savvy on IT, but it's what I hear quite a number of times, that modern tools are that detailed, that comprehensive, with that many functionality and options and settings to think of, that it actually needs quite a substantial training to get the full out of the potential of such a tool. So if you're only an occasional user, that is not helping you.
Yeah, I agree. And if we then make a bridge to, I can hear people thinking already, Mike Richards, nice, you've told me what I'm potentially missing out on. What do you have? And we've made this visual, more of a streamlined visual. And let me talk you through this one. To start off, the Coperitas solution sources data from your ERP or existing legal entity management software. So if you already have such software and that's your main source of truth of your organization, we can use data from that software to feed into Coperitas. But worth mentioning is, if you do not have that at all, maybe you have a smaller company, you've never thought about setting those things up, you'll always maintain your legal tree within Excel or Visio, then you can always put the data in manually in Coperitas. And believe me, it's very easy to do, and it's very fast to do. With certain checks built in, so you're not making any mistakes in that. Then the second part I want to mention is the flexible setup. That's reverting back to that Swiss knife. You can keep it very simple, so only basic data included in the tool, only the data you need for your, let's say, compliance and your documentation, but you can extend that along the way when your needs are changing over time. Then we end up at the Coperitas bullet, the second one. Then all the data is in, and what the tool is doing for you. So the smart car visual again, the tool is actually building those visualizations for you. You do not have to draw any blocks or lines. That's already created based on the data you've put in. And that's the part where the tool is going to work for you, instead of you working within the tool before it's doing anything for you. And then we've made two different types of users. Most of the people using Coperitas are going to use it for their compliance management. And that's of course the first and main reason. So for your transfer pricing documentation, you need the legal tree, let's say you need the value chain, you need the list of entities, and then maybe you're already set up. It's very easy to do, you're quite fast in that, and you can start off. But if we zoom in on management, management people have different needs. Not that they do not care about things put in your documentation, but those needs go a long way, and therefore we created a label management system, which can be compared to sticky notes. And with that system, you can visualize all sorts of visualizations which fulfill your needs you want to see. And if we give a couple of examples, maybe you have IT structures in place, maybe you want to have a better view on your divisions and reporting lines, because those are not always one-on-one with your legal tree. Or maybe you need additional insight in, let's say, a royalty structure. Maybe you do not need it for your documentation, but it's very handy to have as a manager. And Richard, do you have anything to add as a transfer pricing professional? Maybe you have an example you would like to see?
I think a major benefit is that you have, let's say, flexible options to filter and organize your view on the organization. And especially in recent years, a lot more focus is being given to reporting. Who is reporting to who? So who is supervising what type of activities? And if you're able to put labels on entities, you're able to visualize that reporting line across your legal tree, which more or less allows to visualize a matrix type of organization where it goes beyond and across the legal shareholding interest. And I think that is an important part, area of focus of authorities nowadays. So it's good to have that insight, and whether or not you're going to include that in your documentation in more detail, it's only a matter of time that you will be asked to provide some input on who's reporting to who, and then this may provide a very easy and quick entry into exactly that type of information.
Yeah, maybe we can talk all day about this, but maybe we're going to we can show you some of the examples, and maybe our listeners can already visualize their own possibilities. So if we go to the next slide, we see we're going to walk you through some snippets, and we start with the entity list. So this is the Coperitas tool, and I've set the page on the corporate structure. So we see a couple of entities included in here, including their legal relationships. So the top holding is HQ. Then we have 2 holdings in 2 different countries and 4 opcos. Keep it simple, so it adds to the understanding of it. And from this overview, so you've put in all the entities and the relationships that's sourced from the data. The tool is capable of visualizing. So that's what we're seeing on this slide. And if we focus on the top part, the blue blocks, this is the legal tree, automatically built by the Coperitas software based on those data points. So again, we see HQ as a top holding, we see the German and Dutch holdings, and we see a couple of opcos, A, B, C, and D, whereas C and D are located in Germany, and A and B are located in the Netherlands. And if we make the switch from what you need for compliance, maybe this legal structure, to reporting lines, and that's the thing Richard already elaborated on, for management purposes, reporting lines can go across divisions and are not related to the legal relationship or the location in which the entity is active. So if we go to the visualization below, we see a label management structure built with label management, starting with reporting lines, then indicating the head office, which is HQ on the right side. Then we see in this structure 2 divisions, X and Y. So if we focus on the left one, division X, we see that there is a management of division X, which is the Dutch holding, and we see the operations in X, which is OpCo A, which is active in the Netherlands, but also OpCo C, which is active in Germany. So both those OpCos report to the Dutch holding, and the Dutch holding reports to HQ. And if we focus on the right side, we see the opposite, division Y and management Y. So the German holding is responsible for the division Y, and all the operations inside of division Y are OpCo B, located in the Netherlands, and OpCo D, located in Germany. And with this overview, we wanted to show you that You can deviate from that legal structure if reporting lines differ from that legal structure. Richard, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you explained well, Mike. This is, for instance, a common situation where you may have country holdings to have the legal entities in certain countries or regions, but a lot of multinationals have different divisions active with a certain subset of subsidiaries in each country. So this allows you to get a hold on that divisional structure without, let's say, creating different sets of information. It's all drawn from the same information, the same data points, but by using your own sticky notes, so to say, you can create any
reporting lines.
Reporting lines, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the beauty is this visual is very simple. I'm aware of that, but the more complex your organization gets, the more benefit you will have from such a system because it's drawing automatically.
Just to make it clear, this is just an example of using the labels. If you have, for whatever reason, a need to separate entities according to the shoe size of their CEO, that's just another label that you have to stick on them, and then you can cluster them accordingly.
Yeah. And if we zoom in on an example of an IP structure, on my screen the slide is a bit compressed. I hope in full screen mode for you it's readable, but I will walk you through it. If we start on top, we start in the IP structure, and if we move to the left side of the screen, we have IP A, which has an owner on the left side, which is the Dutch holding, and on the right side of the owner are the users of IP A, which is OPCO A in the Netherlands and OPCO C in Germany, to give an example. And if we move to the right side of the example, we've created more of a flow-through example, which starts with IP B on the right side. We see that there's a unilateral APA concluded between HQ and holding Germany, so you can have insight on that as well. And if we go to the owner of IPB on the middle part of the screen, we see that the owner is HQ of IPB. We have a flow-through entity, main license, which is licensed by holding Germany. And on that term, the license is sub-licensed to two OPCOs, which you see on the bottom part of your screen. This is again an example to show you the strengths of such label system, and hopefully it's going to, let's say, be a bit more visualized in your head what the Coperitas tool is capable of. If we then go to the last part, and I think this is also a good part for you, Richard. We've seen a lot, but how, as a user, can you make use of Coperitas? What are the possibilities in general, and what can people expect?
Yeah, I think the way we would like to present the Coperitas from a content perspective is that it is flexible, but also from a provider perspective, we want to be flexible in terms of we have more or less three options to choose from. The lean and mean option, which means that we provide you with the technical setup, and you are responsible for the data conversion and any additional consultancy that is being required. So we only do the technical part. But if you want to team up and want to have more assistance with converting your data into the tool, so perhaps converting your existing transfer pricing document data into the tool and then work with that data going forward, we can help you with that, and that is Section B, we help. Section C, option C would be the same, but we would take it off your hands completely and make sure that the existing documentation that you have is converted into the tool ready to use by you as a user. And in all situations, obviously, there's TP consultancy maybe involved. That is not something that Coperitas is providing because we provide a tool and software, but we have close relationships with Quantera Global as being let's say, the content in transfer pricing. They have been co-developing the tool. And if there is a need, we can draw on their experience and expertise. But if there's another advisor involved already, which is perfectly fine, we will team up with them to the extent necessary, because the tool is independent from any transfer pricing consultant.
Yeah, and I think also worth mentioning is that all you've seen today, the legal entity management part, is not an add-on. It's all included in both versions of the tool. Versioning we will discuss in another webinar, but you always access to the legal entity management part. And as stated before, the level of using the legal entity management functionalities, I think it's only depending on what you want to use. And in the implementation phase, we will discover what you want to use now, but also growing along into the future to set up. Then let's go to the next one. To give a short summary of today, hopefully we showed you a couple of examples what we experienced. The poll already showed me that your answers, that you're not alone, or you have a legal entity management system in place. 20% is possibly using it or not using it because it's too complicated or might be too complicated. 80% still manages their legal entity management activities manually. And I think for that group of companies, please have a closer look to our solution and see what it's capable of. The next webinar will be by the 22nd of July and a rerun at the 26th of August due to the holidays. And the subject will be time to save budget and time, and we will zoom in on how you can save budget and actually time of your tax team by using software. And you can get a free calculation of your savings by the end of the webinar. If you are interested in that webinar, on your screen you can see the link. I believe it's on the right side of your screen. It's an offer. You can click on register here. It will take you in an additional page to the registration page. And beginning of July, we also start promoting this webinar. And to add to that, if you're interested, if you've seen something which attracts your interest, or if you heard us saying things you would like to discuss, we would like to offer you the opportunity to schedule a demo or a call with us. And that also can be done on your right side via MS Bookings. You can pick a time slot which suits your agenda, and it will be automatically scheduled. And we hope to speak to you there. Richard, we've come to the end of the webinar. Do you have anything to add for today?
No, I think we covered the grounds in respect of legal entity management. I think we didn't put much emphasis on why you would want to have this managed properly. And I think just to highlight the fact that it helps you managing risks and exposures, because a lot of manual work will also have a risk of faults. human faults involved. And by the increasing scrutiny across the globe, that may trigger quite some additional discussions, which raises a lot of effort to be addressed to solve whatever miscommunication is being created. So having a proper management of your entities and your corporate truth, so to say, will certainly help you in your daily work as a tax team. I think that's all. The other items will be discussed in the other webinars to come, and we are always very eager and willing to address any specific questions or show you just how it works in your specific situation.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. So that's it for today. Thank you all. We've kept it in 45 minutes, which is always a good thing. We hope to see you next time or speak to you soon. And for now, have a nice remaining of your day or even evening. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.